What, like, I often get comments on my YouTube channel, on people that seem to be rather naive, and I didn't mean that in a disrespectful way. I'm just saying, but they'll say something along the lines of, "We need to get the SNP out ASAP, or who to vote for and whatnot." And sometimes the suggestion is put forth, not so much in my comment section, but I've seen it elsewhere, that we need to vote the Tories in. And as I go through this article, you'll see exactly why I believe personally that the Tories are no better. I mean, granted, to their credit, they put forth a motion to try and scrap this cancerous wee hate bill that Hamza Useless and the Rainbow Unicorn Party publicised. However, what gets said in this article, and what's been said on a plethora of different occasions, kind of showcases the fact that the Tories ain't that much better. So anyway, it says here that the MSPs have voted down a bid to scrap the hate crime bill. That in and of itself showcases to me, however, that if they're all prepared to vote down a bid to scrap said hate crime bill, what does that say about what's going to come at the end of this hate crime bill in and of itself? And what I mean by that is that they are pushing forward, the SNP are pushing forward with this hate crime bill, and 4 out of the 5 major parties, or the ones in Parliament anyway, they're all far left, or at the very least lefties, right? They're not left wing, they're beyond that point. I think we can all establish that. We've got the Greens, we've got the Lib Dems, we've got Labour, and we've got the Rainbow Unicorn Party, or the SNP, whatever. They're all far left, I would argue. So the Tories in that respect, or any right-wing party, would not stand a chance. So really, how much debate is going to be had? How much is there going to be give or take, in relation to what will be adjusted in said hate crime bill? Not very much. Let's be fucking honest here. You know what I mean? However, so this is from the BBC, and it says down here that ministers put forward the hate crime bill to tidy up the law and introduce new protections for vulnerable groups. I mean, vulnerable groups. Every group bar ethnically Scottish men. I say men because there was a part that was put within said hate crime bill, or within the proposals anyway, that said that at a later date they could add misogyny. So that would mean white women, technically under that bracket. It's just white men. It's funny that. Vulnerable groups. And why are they vulnerable? Because they're a minority. If it's homosexuals, they're vulnerable because they're a minority. If it's Muslims, they're a minority and vulnerable. Every group, bar white men. It's just so fantastic. This is progression. This is fucking progression. Pardon my French. I'm not sorry. However, a range of organisations have voiced fears that the current plans could stifle freedom of speech. The Tories want the government to tear up the bill and start again, but saw their motion voted down by ministers of the Scottish Parliament. The Rainbow Unicorn government has said it will very carefully consider concerns, but stands behind the main purpose of the bill to make clear that crimes motivated by hatred and prejudice will not be tolerated in modern Scotland. Every single time I read an article, every single time criticism is directed their way, they come out with this generic shit that, oh yeah, we'll take your concerns into consideration, but we still need things to protect the marginalised. We still need things out there to protect against hatred and so-called prejudice. So it says here that Hamza Useless told the BBC Radio's Good Morning Scotland programme, "You can be as controversial or offensive as you want. What you can't do is be threatening or abusive." But again, it actually fucking hurts my brain to read that. So, so you can be as controversial or offensive as you want, but if somebody takes your controversial views or your quote-unquote offensive views as somewhat abusive, if they view that as abusive, if they view that as a threat, then you're in trouble. Therefore, the first sentence, well, the second sentence even, debunks the first. It's kind of like an oxymoron. The legislation aims to simplify the law by bringing together multiple existing hate crime provisions into a single bill. It would also create a new crime of stirring up of hatred. I mean, this is the fucking point. Is this the point? Like, what does that mean? Seriously, what does that mean? Stirring up of hatred. Seriously. I mean, I, for one, am probably in the shit list if this bill gets passed. But the point I'm trying to stress even, is that, like, it just makes no sense. How can they sit there and justify this? It's beyond me. Either with intention or where it is likely a consequence. No, sorry, where it is a likely consequence of an action. Therefore, what that means is a third party, essentially. So I could say something, hypothetically speaking, and somebody could take what I've said and then act upon what I've said. But I get in trouble for that. Not the individual who acted or took my words the wrong way or whatnot. No, I get in trouble. Or, even before that event ever occurred, I still get in trouble because my words could have, or could potentially, stir up hatred. It's just such shit. Fucking hell, man. I love my country, but I fucking want to leave now. Open to interpretation. This is the wrong criticism from campaigners and comedians that the law could be too vague and too open to interpretation, which it is. More than 2,000 responses were submitted to a public consultation with groups including the Faculty of Advocates, the Scottish Police Federation. I mean, the fact that the fucking police aren't keen on it. What does that tell you? And a collective of leading authors saying it could threaten freedom of speech. The legislation has not yet got as far as its formal debate at Holyrood, and opposition parties have already indicated they will push for amendments when it does. But yeah, but come on. You've already all voted against, by the Tories. You've already all voted against scrapping it and rewriting it. That's finito. I mean, when we talk about amendments, I mean, how many amendments do we expect to see? How many adaptations do we expect to see? I don't really think there will be that many. The fact of the matter is that the hate crime bill in and of itself should not be a thing. But it is. And we're talking about amendments. It shouldn't exist. Oh, there he is, New Scot. Cunt. The Scottish Conservatives put forward a motion stressing that hate crimes are a blight on society in Scotland, but added the right to freedom of expression is the cornerstone of democracy and must never be compromised. It concluded that ministers should accept criticisms, remove its proposed bill, and immediately begin work to draft the legislation that is needed to tackle hate crime, while not threatening to make free speech a crime. And this is kind of going back to what I was talking about at the very beginning of this video, where I was on about the Tories not really mean that much better than any of the rest of them. For the simple matter, hate crime. Like, a crime is a crime. A hate crime. They are buying into this narrative that hate crimes exist. A hate crime back in the day, as I've said in ancient videos before now, is when you, I don't know, you slash someone's tires because they're Polish. You slash someone's tires because they're Muslim, or whatever it may be. But they talk about it as if they are on board with the concept of hate crime. However, let's not dwell on that thought. Tory MSP Donald Cameron said hate crime was intolerable and causes deep harm to its victims and communities. But what are we talking about here when we talk about hate crimes? But said there had been serious, legitimate and credible concerns posed by many in society and the legislation. He said the offence of stirring up hatred was vague and confusing, saying this section was so badly drafted that it was fatal to the bill's prospects. Adding, the government must pause, draw breath, pull back from the brink and pull the bill, because the bill as drafted goes too far. It's too broken to fix. I agree. Cheap political points, of course. This is always defence from the SNP. This is what they do. The motion needed the backing of all opposition parties to pass, but ultimately did win enough support and was amended entirely to wording put forward by Justice Secretary Useless Hamza Useless. In the debate, a number of Rainbow Unicorn backbenchers spoke out about the stirring up hatred elements of the bill and in defence of freedom of speech. Labour's Alex Rowley said many problems have come to light about the legislation, but said his party would back its general principles as long as it could be amended. John Finney said, very disappointing that the Rainbow Unicorn Conservatives have decided to score cheap political points with an attempt to kill the bill stone dead before it has even had a chance to be scrutinised. The Lib Dems, meanwhile, hit out against significant flaws in the legislation, but said they remain committed to working with ministers and others to help deliver legislation that is effective. The point remains, it still stands. It shouldn't exist. Listen carefully. In her annual programme for government, Thin Lips has already indicated that ministers will be pressing ahead with the bill, of course. However, she said, I know concerns have been raised. I want to give an assurance that we will listen carefully. Freedom of speech and expression is fundamental in any democracy. How can you fucking say that, but then in the next breath, advocate and condone a hate crime bill? Or hate speech bill, even. It's just... Like, seriously. I don't know. You cannot sit there and grandstand at your podium and talk about free speech being an inherited right and whatever the fuck else, and then in the next breath advocate for a bill that would curtail speech. It does not take Sargoy of Akkad to tell you that. It doesn't take me either. It's common sense. Unless you're on board with this shit, you can see it for yourself. Mr. Useless has denied claims that the bill was too vague. It fucking is too vague. It is, because it's open for interpretation. What is threatening? What is likely to stir up hatred? Well, that depends on who is the recipient of said hatred and whatnot. He insisted that proposed legislation does not seek to stifle criticism or rigorous debate and has pledged to find a way of making it effective while still preserving freedom of speech. But you cannot do that. And then in the next breath advocate, or in your case, conjure up a bill that curtails freedom of speech. That's exactly what this is. Are you going to enshrine it in law that freedom of speech must be protected? No, you're not going to do that. You're fucking not. You useless, incompetent fucking walnut. He said, I do accept that there is a lot of strong feeling and that it is incumbent on the government and parliamentarians to try and see where we can improve the bill. Walking away from the entire process, scrapping a bill which has a lot of support. A lot of support from the little SJW/lefty/commie/anti-racist etc. organisations. It doesn't have the support of the fucking public, and you're supposed to be a public servant. And that's the point, eh? Before I flip a lid, I'm fucking going. Peace be upon you.